Okay, so let me back up real quickly. I do want to thank everybody for their attendance. I was just kind of summarizing how it is that we did not meet the last couple of months. We did have a last minute schedule conflict with our speaker last month. And the month prior to that, we actually did not have someone lined up. So what that means is that the last time this committee met was for our meeting in February for our standing monthly meeting. However, that one also was a little bit different format for us. We were fortunate enough to take an offsite tour over at Volt Institute, and I know several of you joined in that, and we got a wonderful tour from Tyler over there, and just a great explanation of how they're meeting many of the employment skills need in our region and city. So because we were meeting remotely, we did not formalize going through and I guess acknowledging all of our attendees, and then also approving the previous minutes that we had from our previous meeting. And so we do have January's meeting minutes that are up. Those should be visible to both those in attendance and those virtual right now. Wanted to make sure to share those with you. We've already passed those around internally to the chamber here, but we need to make sure that those are available to the broader committee. So we do have both January meeting minutes there. We can take a quick moment to review those perhaps while we're doing some introductions. And then maybe partway through our introductions here, we'll also switch over to the meeting minutes from our February tour that we had over at Volt. So Trish, if you can help with that during our time, that would be great. And in a way of trying to multitask and make a good use of our time, what I'd like to go ahead and do is work through folks that are attending virtually today, and then we'll wrap up with introductions here in the room. And so if you are joining us online, as we can maybe just kind of work through that list there, I would love to hear your name and the organization with which you're affiliated. And certainly if anybody is attending for the first time today to our Economic Development Committee, we'd like to know that as well. So if we can maybe go ahead and just start off with, I'm seeing at the top of my list, I've got John Beckman. You can go ahead and start us off.
John Beckman, I'm the CEO of the Building Industry Association of the Greater Valley.
Fantastic. Thanks, John. And April? Looks like maybe we're on, but I'm not sure if we're muted. We can come back there. Bob, go ahead and introduce yourself if you would.
Hi, Bob Kimball, City of Modesto Economic Development. Thanks for having the meeting.
Absolutely. Thank you. And Vanessa?
Hi, Vanessa Emo, Director of Sales and Marketing for the DoubleTree by Hilton Modesto.
Thanks for being on. Appreciate you joining us. And let's see here. Who else? April, are you able to jump on and unmute?
Can you hear me?
Yes, you can now.
Okay, sorry about that.
My car, so it was acting funny. Great to see everybody or be on with everyone. April Potter, Opportunity Stanislaus.
Fantastic. Glad you're able to join us. That's great. And then so physically in the room here to my far right, and we'll just kind of work our way around. And so we do have with us today Cecil
Russell with Sylvan Financial and the Graffiti Museum.
Okay.
Raymond McCaslin, Valley First Credit Union, VP Commercial Bank.
Okay. Jared Hollis with Ametis. Fantastic. Thanks, Jared. And again, Bill Robinson on the board with the chamber here, and also with Principal Financial here in Modesto as well.
Good afternoon. I'm Trish Christensen, President and CEO of the Modesto Chamber of Commerce. Chamber board member.
Fantastic. Well, thanks everybody again for the introductions and that. And we've had a little bit of an opportunity to review our previous meeting minutes.
Good morning. How you doing? Doing well. How are you doing?
I'm doing well. John, I'm going to mute you, sir.
Thanks, John. Appreciate it. So I've come to find out, and maybe many of you appreciate, there's no such thing as perfect technology, right? So,
No.
Motion to approve.
so yeah, so if I'm entertaining a motion to approve the minutes, and I do have a first from Cecil.
I'll second.
Okay, thank you, Pat. Appreciate that.
That was for both months.
Yes, and so we'll approve for both January and February in there. Let me make a quick note of that. Fantastic.
We skipped Mike just because you'll be introducing him, but we could have him introduce himself if you'd like.
Sure, okay. So today we have two gentlemen presenting for us, and so what I'm going to do is introduce the first here, and what we'd like to have is your presentation and then some time for some Q&A after that. And so rather than saving all of our Q&A for the end and kind of getting our topics commingled here, I want to go ahead and address those each separately, because we're kind of in two different segments of industries. So what I've asked and have talked with both of our presenters today is Mike Butler, we do see you on, and it was not by accident that I didn't have you introduce yourself just a second ago, because I'd like to have you introduce yourself now at the top of your presentation. But Mike Butler joins us online today as you see, Senior Account Executive with Bird. And so that is an initiative that my understanding is likely going to be going in front of the City Council fairly soon, and we'd like to hear about that. And so with that, Mike, if you could go ahead and jump in and take it away, give us a little bit more background, and then you can share with us.
Yeah, sounds great. Well, thank you for the introduction. My name is Mike Butler. I am on the city partnerships team here at Bird. So it's really my job to help facilitate pilot programs and trial periods into cities big and small, and just like Modesto. So looking forward to speaking more about this and hopefully answering any and all questions about how this might work in the community.
Mike, will you be screen sharing?
I am, yeah. Would it be helpful to get started right now? I wasn't sure if Jared would take my place, or if you want me to go first.
No, we'd like you to go ahead and share. We can do that. Mike, would be great.
Okay,
You should be
great.
able to
Just
screen
give
share
me.
now.
Okay. Let me fire this up. Okay, can everybody see this?
You got it.
Yes, we're good.
Excellent. All right. So I think as a starter, it's always helpful to understand why we started this business and why we do what we do. And it really is to improve our communities and, of course, improve the lives of the people within those communities. Now, we do so by being a transportation company. We do so by helping people get from A to B, helping people get to where they need to go and where they want to go. And we are what the industry calls a micro mobility company. It's a fancy term just for transportation. And we have a focus in shared electric vehicles. And if you're not too familiar with us, we started this business in 2017, actually as the first company in the world to come out with this. At the time was a wacky, out of left field idea. And today we've expanded just from being in one city back then to now 5 continents, 25 countries, about 400 cities, and 100 million times, actually over 100 million times, someone has used our product to help get them from A to B. So it's 100 million times someone has trusted us to help them get to where they want to go. And we are widely seen as the most trusted provider of this in the entire world. And these are really cities of all shapes and sizes. I think the general perception is that this type of concept only works in major, huge, large metropolitan areas. So you can think of places like Los Angeles and San Francisco and San Diego and Sacramento. You can see here, even just from this list, that that's clearly not the case. That's only a small percentage of the cities that we interact with. And maybe that perception is just a result of the traveling that's done to those major areas, and maybe not traveling done to, I don't know if anyone here has even been to Coalinga or Eureka or Hollister. So I think, again, I bring this up because when I first was meeting with the city staff and some organizations, they were a bit skeptical about how the service could work. And I kind of joked with them and I said, hey, do you know if Modesto was in Kansas or Iowa or Nebraska, it'd be probably like the second or third biggest city there. So there's no question in our mind that the business is going to work because it has worked in so many similar communities. Now, if you're not familiar with the service, it's very simple. It's very intuitive. It's all application based. So you would have the app, you would sign our user agreement, verify that you were of age, put your payment information in. You'd also be required to complete a series of videos and tutorials and an acknowledgement of local laws so that you understand exactly how to ride and how to park and how to interact with the service in Modesto. And then when you're done, you're riding this basically like a bike is. They go the same speed, they're ridden by the same type of people, they're ridden on the street. And then when you're done, you would park it up in a certain area on the sidewalk. Pricing is very simple. There's $1 to unlock that vehicle and then a per minute fee. So that results in basically an average ride of about $6 or $7. We do also have some pricing options and discounts available for those that are enrolled in perhaps government assistance programs, or if you're a veteran, or if you're a senior citizen, or if you're a healthcare worker. The goal is to make this for everyone, not just for a certain segment of the population. So we try to make this as democratized as possible. You can even see here, we even take it one step further to where we can deploy certain technology to say, hey, if you actually unlock this vehicle in a certain zone, we're just going to automatically apply a discount. So we've had to do things like that with certain communities, which is always something that we can do for yours as well. And I think in general, safety is a huge piece of our business. The vehicle that you're seeing here is a vehicle that you would likely see in the coming weeks should we begin operations. It is a result of years and years in the making of different designing and iterations. In 2017, we were just beginning to design and manufacture our own vehicles. And every year we came out with a new model with enhanced features, enhanced safety features, better tires, better braking systems, similar to how Audi and Mercedes and Lexus, every single year they come out with a new vehicle. And we do the same thing. So we've come out with a new vehicle every year. This is the vehicle that is objectively the best vehicle on the market today, and at least the safest and smoothest and most durable. So if you're ever visiting some of those cities that I had mentioned earlier, this is what you're going to see. And as I mentioned, I think safety is probably the second biggest piece of our business. One, I think working with cities and making sure cities are our number one customer. And then below that is, of course, they work hand in hand, because if you don't get the trust and the confidence from the city without having their service being seen as something that's safe. So you can see here that the incident rate is essentially similar to what you would see with a bicycle. I think everyone in this room is probably pro bicycle and pro getting people out of their cars and onto the road and walking. And you can see it's largely much safer than even most of us driving a car today, and of course safer than running a bicycle. So again, I bring this up because I think a lot of people do have the perception that this type of service is dangerous. Not to say that there isn't risk involved in virtually anything that we do, but the data suggests that it's identical to what you would see with a personal bicycle. I'll just pause right here just for a second. Would it be helpful to open up for any questions? Because I know we've already seen a lot of content so far.
Anyone? Oh, April's coming back now.
Not seeing any questions right now, Mike.
Okay, I'll keep trucking ahead. So what you're seeing here, obviously, when we work with any type of city, this could be a major city like Rome, Italy, or Berlin, or New York City. We have to deploy certain technology to ensure that the vehicles are programmed to essentially slow down or actually stop entirely if they reach a certain location. So you can probably think of certain areas in Modesto right now where you would say, hey, I don't know if we want vehicles over here or in this particular park or in this neighborhood or whatever that is. And so what we can do is program the vehicles to act in a certain way when they enter an exact latitude and longitude. Think about if your car were able to do that, it would basically slow down to a certain speed if you reach a certain speed limit on a street. That is a type of technology that we essentially invented and have deployed into very, very sophisticated markets. And all that means is that we're just replicating that here in Modesto. I think another piece here is focusing on the general tidiness of this operation. You know, our future as a business relies on integrating things like this into all types of communities. And I think people have seen this concept done in some larger markets and maybe have this idea that you're going to see a lot of clutter. The reality of it is that that's mostly the case in cities where there's multiple companies that are running the business and quite literally thousands and thousands of vehicles on the road. That's not a realistic scenario in a place like Modesto. You know, you're working with one vendor in Bird and a very calculated and very measured number of vehicles during this pilot program. So what you might see in a place like San Francisco or Sacramento is not what you're going to see here. And on top of that, and I'll get into this on a future slide, you know, we have so many different solutions and things that we can put in place to combat that. And most notably is having a local business and a team of local representatives to basically resolve anything that may come up. And these are folks that are living in the city that are minutes away from resolving any type of issue that might arise. This is another thing that we have as well. So I think this is a really interesting feature that allows us to basically incentivize people to park in certain locations and thus combating any type of level of untidiness or clutter. So you can see here, you know, one, we require riders to take a photo at the end of their ride so we can audit this, making sure that they're doing what they're supposed to be doing. But on top of that, we can encourage people to park in certain areas if we feel like this particular zone is the ideal place to park in Modesto. If you park here, we're actually going to give you a discount on your ride because that's saving us some time and that's ensuring that this service is looking clean and orderly. As I mentioned earlier, the way that we run our business is actually done through local businesses in Modesto. So you can think of perhaps a local business that's live today or local entrepreneurs that we use as what we call fleet managers. It is a business or entrepreneur who is deploying the vehicles, servicing them, charging them, repairing them, making sure they're upright in order. And they actually share the revenue with us. So this is a local business that gets to generate an income by running this program and helping us run this program on the ground. It can actually be incredibly lucrative for a lot of these people. And we've seen that people can transform their lives just by using this and relying on Bird for their income because it doesn't require any type of upfront cost. You're essentially running a pseudo franchise, but instead of forking over $400,000, this is free for them. So it's a really unique opportunity for them. You know, we've actually already identified a number of businesses and entrepreneurs that are interested in running this and are just waiting for the vote from the city. Economic impact is huge as well. There's been a number of studies done, not just through Bird, but with third parties that show that for programs like this, specifically with Bird, there's a significant uptick in spending that's done specifically in food and beverage restaurants. So it's basically saying that in certain areas, the fact that you are allowing your residents to get to certain businesses and discover their town in a new way, they are more prone to spending more money. So there's a huge peripheral economic impact on top of this impact that we're having for local businesses that are actually running the business on the ground. And this is a huge piece of this because oftentimes cities say, hey, what's in it for us? And this is a major peripheral advantage to just allowing your residents to help get them from A to B. And then for the city side, we actually give them a dashboard that allows them to see exactly where every vehicle is. But more importantly, what are the trips that your residents are taking? What businesses are they going to? What routes are they taking? And I think this is something that's hugely critical because there's no other way to obtain this. You can't really follow someone on a personal vehicle. You can't follow someone if they're walking and what routes they're taking. But through this, we're actually giving this to you just for free. We're giving the city the ability to understand where their residents are going, what businesses are they going to, and what they choose to do with this is up to them. If that means that they're striping out bike lanes, if that means they're adding bike racks, if that means that they're improving infrastructure or widening sidewalks, that's completely up to them. But this is a really big piece of the puzzle. So our proposal to the city, which this is going to be voted on next Tuesday is really simple. This is free to the city. So this is public transportation that otherwise other programs cost hundreds of thousands of dollars. This is $0. In fact, we're actually giving the city money for this. So every time someone rides a vehicle, we're going to give them money. That data dashboard that's there, that's free to the service. The number of vehicles and the launch date is always dependent on what demand looks like and the time of year that we're launching, hopefully next month. And that approval document that we have is pretty simple. It's just a pilot agreement that allows Bird to run the business for about 12 months. So that is it. I know it's been quite long-winded, but I hope everyone here is at least decently more educated in the matter than they were 10 minutes ago. But I'll pause for any questions.
Do we have any questions from online? Can you see there? Okay. Cecil, go ahead. Question in here, Mike, was where did the name come from?
Our CEO had years ago ridden on a personal electric scooter and felt like he was flying. He thought it was the most fun experience that you could have. And he said he just felt like a bird, and that's where it came from. And since then, we've had basically every business copy us in terms of being a 4-letter animal name or a 4-letter name. I have no idea why.
Okay. That's an interesting observation too. Sure.
Yeah.
So Mike, one of the questions that I had during your presentation, I think your last slide actually addressed, and it showed on there, there would be approximately 100 to 300 vehicles, right? And
Yep.
if I understand correctly, for this market, this particular vehicle type, and you talked about improvements and enhancements year over year and that kind of thing. What is the typical runtime without a charge, and how frequently do you see maintenance and some of those things that are maybe a little bit more vehicle focused, if you could flesh that out a little bit?
Yeah, it's really a revolving door of different tasks that those fleet managers are going to have to do. So it's reshuffling of vehicles, it's charging of vehicles, it's taking minor repairs back to their facility and then bringing it back on the road. So that's really a daily thing that the fleet managers do. And like I said, in exchange for that, they share the revenue with us. So anytime someone takes a ride in their vehicle, they're getting a percentage of that revenue. So that's really exciting. But it depends. Obviously, similar to what your phone and computer is, if you're using the battery more, then you're going to have to charge it more. So if people are using the vehicles, which we're confident they will, that means we'll just have to charge them on a regular basis, which is usually between 1 to 3 days.
Gotcha. Okay. So that's kind of what I was getting at there, the 1 to 3 day part. And then what is your experience in other cities where you already operate, where what kind of frequency of turnover? Like when do you take one off the street and replace with a newer model, not necessarily just a maintenance and recharge if you?
Almost never. I mean, if we're adding new vehicles to the market, that means that demand is so high that we're increasing the fleet size in the city. We're not really replacing that with a certain vehicle. The vehicles have a useful life of anywhere between 3 to 5 years, at least these new ones do. So there's not going to be a time where we have to remove a vehicle out there, unless, of course, that vehicle is basically totaled, which is essentially, an edge case, which does happen. That would be the only case that we'd have to basically ship this individual a new vehicle.
Got it. Okay. Yeah, that's kind of what we're trying to get at. And Cecil has another question here for us too. Go ahead, sir.
So if you get the franchise here or the operating agreement here, and you start with 100 vehicles, how do you decide strategically where you place these throughout the city?
Yeah, we have a very extensive operations team whose sole job every single day is to designate those types of locations, right? So we operate in huge markets, as I mentioned, New York City, Los Angeles, San Francisco, Berlin, Oslo, you name it. And so it's our job to determine those locations. It's not the city's job to determine that. We're the local business. The city doesn't determine the types of pizzas that the pizza parlor sells. That's the local business's job. And we operate under the same type of parameters. So we have data that allows us to say, that there's a higher likelihood that a vehicle will be used if it's deployed in this location. And then we can always change that. So if we feel like certain neighborhoods need to be they need to be served, or if we feel like certain locations are it's more ideal for that vehicle to be deployed, we can do that as well. So it really is kind of an ongoing basis based on the data that we are receiving throughout the operation.
Fantastic. Thanks, Mike. We do have a question, looks like from April. If you want to go ahead and unmute there. And
Yeah, thanks so much. Great presentation, Mike. Thank you for that. And I've just had a couple questions. One, are there any other cities in Stanislaus County that are looking at it? And then two, are there marketing materials that Bird has established that can be co-branded, or is it, everybody or the franchisees or however that works, they would put out their own marketing materials to try to get the word out?
Yeah, so we're the franchise. I think this is good to clear up. The fleet manager that's on the ground there, they are really just there as operationally. So they're not really an employee of ours. So they don't have a ton of insight on how the business works outside of just running the infield operations. So we just outsource that segment of the business to them. Anything when it comes to legal and marketing and sales and anything of that nature, that's done by our team. And we do have materials, we have social assets, we have ways that we can run some type of co-op just to get the word out there. I think the city is absolutely going to want to do that. In fact, every city wants to do that to make sure that the citizens are aware of, hey, the service is coming, here's how you interact with it, here's what to expect, here's the phone number you call if you have any issues, and all of that. So we're actually going to give the city a dedicated account manager to run all of the pre-launch processes that need to be done. Your question of are there other cities that are looking into this? Yeah, I've met multiple times with the mayor of Ceres to talk about this. He'll actually be sending a letter of recommendation to the council because he wants this in his city, but he won't really be able to do so unless Modesto says yes. And I think we're trying to do the same thing in Turlock as well. So our goal is to service this market, and typically these things are very regionally focused. So once one city says yes and they're willing to do this, basically every city goes, oh yeah, we don't want to be left out. We want to do that too.
Right. Okay. Awesome. Thank you so much.
good questions. Any other questions out there for Mike? I appreciate the ones we've received, and certainly Mike, you being able to flesh those out for us. That's great.
Yeah, and if there aren't any, again, our goal of this conversation was just to educate the chamber on how this would work. And it really goes a long way to gain any sort of support or endorsement from a local organization like this. So I've met with the Modesto DID and talking to Domo and trying to talk to other local organizations to ensure that they're aware that this concept is likely coming, and to hopefully receive the chamber's endorsement. So because I think that does go a long way as council members are evaluating how they want to vote on this.
Okay. Fantastic, Michael. I do thank you for your time today, and look forward to hearing the outcome of your meeting with the city, and just ask that you stay in touch with the committee. Let us know how things are going for you, and we can have further conversation offline on how we can help and what that might look like. So that would be great. Really do appreciate your presentation today, and it is. I find this particular type of transportation an interesting concept, and immediately recognized the potential economic impact, and that's part of the reason why we wanted to have you speak in this committee today. So thank you for joining us and giving us some of your time.
You bet. Thanks for having me.
You bet. Absolutely. Go ahead.
Real
Trish.
quick,
Yep.
would you mind sending me a copy of your PowerPoint so I could save it into minutes?
Yeah, absolutely.
Thank you.
Thanks, Mike. So during your presentation, Mike, we did also have a couple of folks join us online as well. And so, gentlemen, if you can go ahead and unmute your lines, just introduce yourself and the businesses with which you are affiliated, that'd be great. So maybe John, if you can go ahead and jump in.
Yeah, John Valines with the Modesto Gospel Mission, and I'm on the board of the chamber.
Fantastic. Thank you very much. And Jalen, if you would as well.
Good afternoon, all. It's a little late for Mike's presentation, but wanted to hear, well, my name is Jalen French. I'm the Director of Community Economic Development with the City of Modesto. Was interested in the conversation around the scooter proposal.
Fantastic.
Just for awareness, we did record today's meeting, so we'll have it available, Jalen.
Perfect. Thanks, Trish.
You're welcome.
Fantastic. All right, so without further ado, I'm going to go ahead and pivot here and introduce our next speaker. And this is Jarrett Hollis with Immedus, and to my immediate right. And I think we've got either a slide deck or the ability to share
I'm working
screens
on
here.
it.
Presentation. Okay, which is fantastic. Trish will pull that up for us. And so had a couple of great conversations thus far with Jarrett, and wanted to give an opportunity for us to hear the impact not only of the company, but also how it's affecting here in your industry relative to kind of the economic footprint, if you will. And so I know that's going to be some of the content that you have, but we'd love to have you share with us.
Well, certainly. I mean, did the presentation a little bit of vacuum, but I think we'll answer some of the questions. And thank you for inviting me for the opportunity to speak to the group. Just let me know when that presentation is ready and we'll get started.
It's up.
It's up. Okay. So my name is Jarrett Hollis. I'm with Immedus. Go ahead and go to the next slide. I am the Vice President of Projects for Immedus. Have been in this position for a little bit over a year. And so when I put this together, I thought it was a great idea to give a little bit of my background, but now it feels a little more of a shameless plug on the next screen there.
Yeah, I'm working on it.
My brief work history, I do have for the industry that I'm in, we are in renewable fuels, which has all kinds of facets to it. It has chemistry, it has biology, it has environmental conservatorship to it. And so with that, I have a degree in environmental science. First 15 years of my career was in hazardous waste management and recovery. Had 15 years in fuel ethanol production. And the last 5 years was a little different. I did pet food and pet treats production. Currently back with Immedus in a different role as the VP of projects. And I am stationed out at the Riverbank project, which is the old ammo plant in Riverbank, California. And so it has been converted into an industrial park. Immedus is now responsible at the site as the master developer to continue developing the project and growing the industrial park. So we currently have over 34 industrial tenants at the facility, anywhere from security fencing to plastics recycling, oil recycling. So it's more of a green focus on the park itself. The near future at that facility at Immedus is looking to continue that process and to build out a sustainable aviation fuel production facility. Overview of Immedus. We've been in, it was founded in 2006 by biofuels industry veteran Eric McAfee, who's been in for quite a while. It is publicly traded as AMTX, 143 million in revenues in 2017. So some of these slides I grabbed out of other presentations. We have been operating a facility in Keys, California since 2011. It's just right off Highway 99. You see it, looks like a plume of smoke, but it's really the cooling towers blowing the heat off of the plant right off Keys Road on 99. If you're going by there, that's our plant. Immedus leadership, Eric McAfee, Andy Foster, a lot of you probably know him or met him. He's pretty active in the area, and Todd Waltz. A little bit about Immedus. I'm next. I founded in 2006 in Cupertino, California. That's where the corporate office is at. Advanced Renewables and Biochemicals Company. And we're looking to commercialize innovative technologies to replace traditional fossil fuels. Our mission is to replace high carbon intensity petroleum products with below zero renewable fuels. That's carbon intensity. And byproducts to reverse climate change caused by greenhouse gases warming our planet. And this is pretty much the focus of California these days on the environmental edge, is to how do we get to carbon neutral? And Aemetis is in the middle of that, forging forward with ways to make that happen. So we're looking at everything. We're looking at what's the CO2 that's produced, what can you do with it, sequester. We're looking at orchard waste, how can it be recycled, put into back into production phase or fuel product. So everything that we can get our hands on, we're looking at. Go to the next page. We have just locations of what we're doing. And that is Advanced Fuels Keys. That's the ethanol facility. 60 million gallon per year ethanol plant. It is the largest ethanol facility in California. Also produces animal feed, cattle feed. Silage grains byproduct of corn and fermentation process, 400,000 tons annually. And over 1 million gallons of corn oil is produced annually as well from that process. It's quite substantial. It provides a lot of feed product to the local dairies all around us here. And corn oil is used in various different processes. Mainly right now it's blended in with chicken feed products. The Aemetis Biogas is one of our newer ventures. It's underway and in progress and operating now. The goal is to install a network of dairy digesters in as many dairies as we can develop relationships with. It's over a 30-mile pipeline that we're putting to connect the dairies together from Keys out to Hillmont. And I do have a map of that in here as well. The idea is to take the methane that's produced currently at all the dairies. There's a regulatory requirement to have a large substantial reduction in methane production, greenhouse gas production. And Aemetis is helping to solve that issue with installing a lagoon, a covered lagoon. You know, I guess I got these a little bit backwards, don't I? Let me take a step before I go forward here. Aemetis Properties Riverbank is, we just opened that up in, or just
That this
joined.
one?
No, a little further, go back a little bit more, the other way.
Other way.
Yeah, I'm going right there.
Got it.
Aemetis Properties Riverbank is one of the newer groups that we have. That's the one that I'm in charge of today. We took over April 1st from the Riverbank LRA as the master developer at that complex. Used to be the old Army ammo plant. Has been in that location since 1942. Started out as aluminum manufacturing for the war effort. And then in the 50s, the Army picked it up to make not ammunition, but shell casings for ammunition. In the mid-90s, BRAC closed that facility, the Army BRAC program, and it is now being converted with the city over to the industrial complex. We have up and coming Aemetis Carbon Capture. The two locations, both Riverbank and Keys, and the idea for that is to remove carbon dioxide from entering the atmosphere as it's being produced and capture it underground, fixate it. Aemetis SAF will be built in Riverbank, that's sustainable aviation fuel production. Now we go to the next page and just a picture of the ethanol facility in Keys, overhead picture. Next slide. Here is our biogas project overview. We have a map. Very top of the picture is the Keys facility with the pipeline. You see the orange dots of areas that are already in place. There's actually 3. There's an orange one under the first yellow one. It's hard to see that. The pipeline is currently under construction down to Hillmont. We'll be folding in more dairies. The lagoon looks like the picture on the right. Used to be an open lagoon where gas emissions from degradation were openly entering the atmosphere. We put the lagoon in, it's covered, tarped with a sealed cover. And we do the biodegradation of the fecal matter from the dairy, collecting the gas that's produced, scrubbing the hydrogen sulfide part out of that. And then we pump it in that pipeline back to the facility, separate the carbon dioxide from the methane. The methane is purified and compressed back into pipeline quality. It can be used as pipeline gas to fuel trucks or to fuel the facility boilers as well. So it's a very robust process. Next page, this is an aerial view of the Army ammo plant. If you have never seen it before, it is quite large, it's over 124 acres. It's divided into a number of parcels today. The operating facility that is in an industrial complex is pictured here. Over 34 different companies operating out of this facility today, with more signing leases to come in and operate their facilities. And it continues to be new tenants, new grain processes. We have a food composter who's coming in. One of the new requirements is to segregate food waste and recycle it. And this group will be processing food waste into fertilizer and animal food. Moving forward with Metis' CCUS process and SAF process, we have an outline of the property of the facility in the top picture and an overlay of the aviation fuel facility in the bottom picture. Red square is approximate location of where we're looking to do a carbon sequestration well. Next page. This is a study that was done back in 2018, an in-plan employment study. I've seen a number of these throughout my career. They are all about the same. You have a direct job that's produced, and it produces a projected indirect number of jobs associated with that to support that direct job. For the study for Metis, it had a 5-year projected impact. COVID has now interrupted that process for about 1.5 years, and as well as are now the issues we have today of, can you get equipment to build your new facility? Can you get software, not really software issues, but computer control systems, hardware, everything is becoming 1 year out or more to obtain the equipment just to build your plant after you design it. So that 5-year projected impact holds no more. There will be more drawn out. I won't have a number on that. Direct jobs projected within Metis is 162. Indirect induced jobs, truck drivers, ingress, egress of facilities, and all the support groups is projected to be over 2,000 positions, which is substantial. This is all in Stanislaus County. So job types, operations, plant management, laboratory positions, sales and marketing positions, maintenance positions, those are all direct. Economic impact over 5 years, the original projection, employees would have a $234 million impact over a 5-year span. Federal, state, local taxes over 96 million combined, which is also substantial. A little bit about sustainable aviation fuel. I'll put more in here than anything else on aviation fuel because we're not producing it yet. And this is the drive to get to aviation fuel. Ethanol has been in the market since the 80s and it has matured. Aviation fuel is the next large one. Currently, 2021 production was only 219 million gallons. It's projected that by 2030, over 15 billion gallons will be in production. And why is that much needed is the question. Go to the next slide. When you look at air traffic forecast, this is Barclays 2022 SAF report. That's where this came from. And with their projected growth, over 250 billion gallons that will be needed. But yet the path to net zero by 2050 is going to need something to assist in getting those emissions down. So with the next slide itself, they can accomplish some of that through new technology efficiency gains with aircraft engines and core efficiency gains. And SAF and carbon offsets have been targeted to fill that gap on that pathway to net zero by 2050. So it's an important process going forward to ensure the efficiency gains on emissions in the, well, it'd be the world, that the United States and California, in particular, California has the history of leading everyone else on moving forward with environmental improvements. And so here we are in California, assisting complete that way. Some circular economies within Aemetis, just to give a good picture of that. On the left, number one, Aemetis biogas is producing fuel from the dairy farms. Keyes ethanol plant itself, it produces food, it produces fuel, and it circles it all the way back to the facility again. If you can wrap your head around this one, it's a lot to look at one time. We're looking at taking corn, making fuel, making food, the food making more fuel for vehicles, for pipelines. It covers a lot in one circle. Then we look at it's called the renewable jet and diesel plant number 3. That's the sustainable aviation fuel. Part of that process is using wood waste in orchards. You're no longer allowed to burn wood waste anymore in California. And there has to be a home for all of that wood waste. Aemetis is taking part of that, and the type of burners that would use that wood waste to produce hydrogen, which is part of that conversion process in the SAF plant. Utilizing corn oil that we produced out of the ethanol facility, as well as fats and oils that are currently produced in the market to make that aviation fuel. So it's really more than 2 circular economies, but this is enough to look at and say, okay, what do I do next? Out of all of that process is a large amount of carbon dioxide that is produced. And the push for carbon dioxide is to sequester it, which is basically you put in a well, you go down about 7,000 feet, and you sequester that carbon dioxide in the brine layer. And there's one place in the United States that's been identified that has the proper subsoil structure to be able to sequester CO2, and it's right here in the Central Valley. So we are positioned here in an ideal spot to accomplish all items at one time. More in Aemetis website, Aemetis.com, has lots of information associated with this. And I did keep going and not stop for any questions, but we'll stop now because I'm done. And anyone have any questions? I'll try to answer them the best as I can. Or is it just too much to ask?
Hey, Jarrett, this is April. Can you hear me okay?
I can hear you, April.
Awesome. Are you guys wanting to create the sustainable aviation fuel yourself, or are you wanting to bring companies in that specialize in that to the plant?
Could you say that one more time, April? It was a little hard to understand.
Oh, yeah, sorry. So I was wondering, is Aemetis itself going to want to do the sustainable aviation fuel themselves, or is that something they want to draw other companies who do that to the industrial complex?
We will be producing the sustainable aviation fuel ourselves. And so,
Awesome.
yes, we are building the facility and we'll be operating.
Perfect.
Any other questions? Because I have a comment. Okay. There's not other questions. So we are the countywide program provider for the Stanislaus Green Business Network. And we have worked with Repsco out at the Riverbank Industrial Park and already have them green certified on the state site, which is really a key referral site.
They did mention that, yes.
So I would love to partner, just opportunities to work with you on getting green certified some of your own entities. But as you're bringing in tenants into some of these other spaces with such a green focus already anyway, it would be a great opportunity to work with them to get them certified. It's a no cost service we're providing.
I think that's a great idea. I know there's 2 current tenants outside of Repsco that fits Repsco's model on recycling of plastics, and the other tenant coming in towards the end of the year for recycling food waste would certainly be that as well.
There's a checklist that we can access for every industry. So we've done vegan restaurant to Audi Modesto to Blue Diamond Growers to Valley Milk and Repsco. I mean, so it's a mix. So a lot of opportunity with all the work you're doing to highlight that.
I think it's a great idea.
Yeah, would love to partner with you on that. Okay, anything else?
Well, I too would maybe just echo a comment that the two main things that I took away from your presentation, Jared, was that number one, the focus on process from a closed loop system, that kind of design structure, I think is great and certainly I guess kind of expected in a sustainable type of business model, right? And so I was glad to see that, but also part of the reason why I had reached out to you to ask you to come present to us is because of the employment impact and the number of jobs that creates. And that's been really a big kind of banner raising activity of the Chamber of Commerce is in job creation, job growth, attracting skilled labor and educated workforce and that kind of thing into our area really for a very long time. And so it's good to see that. And even though that there are a number of positions across a variety of different skill sets, job creation and job growth is key and super important. So I'm glad that you highlighted that too.
Absolutely. I do want to add one more thing because it's something that just recently came up that this group may be of assistance with. On the renewable natural gas that we're already producing now, and we would like to move into fleet operations, converting to renewable natural gas from diesel. That's the next phase. You always keep going because you have the next one coming up. And so what we're looking for now is there any group within the area that has experience converting diesel engines to, it'll be a CNG conversion. RNG is the same thing, compressed natural gas. And so I just started my search for that. It was the direction I received last week, and looking for some leads on that.
We put a little thought into that. I have a couple names coming to mind, but I want to verify that.
Okay, yeah, good. It's more of a, you know, I'd love to have somebody at the industrial park doing the operation, because that would make the most sense for the circular economy that we continue to produce. But it is it's a repair shop. It's a conversion shop. It's a whole new operation.
Yeah.
I'm glad you asked about that.
Yes.
Keith Bob's might be able to.
Okay.
I'm actually having lunch with him in a week, so.
Okay. No, that's great.
I'm sorry, but I do have to go. I
That's
have to get back for an important meeting.
I understand. All right. Well, I do appreciate your time, Jared, and thank you for being with us today.
Bill, would you have some like cards?
Yep,
please?
here you go.
Sure. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Yep.
Thank
Safe
you for
travels
the
to you.
invitation.
We'll talk to you soon.
Have a great day.
All right. Thanks, Jared. Okay, fantastic. So perhaps just in a way of wrap up for our time today, I would ask you to save the dates for our next meeting, which is scheduled for the 1st of June. That being the first Wednesday of the month, happens to land on the 1st of the month. So we need to verify a couple of things with our speaker there, but it looks like we likely will have Lynn Dickerson presenting to us that day. I think we've confirmed that. And we've recently had a meeting with the internally here with the chamber to finish verifying speakers throughout the second half of this year as well. So more details on that as we approach. But do please mark your calendar. We'd love to have you participate and be present for our conversation and meeting on the 1st of June. So Trish, I don't know if you have any other announcements we need to make or attendees aware of.
John, I'll give you an opportunity to highlight GRC is on the 20th. Do you want to touch on your speaker lineup for that?
Yeah, thank you, Trish. Our GRC speaker will be Joe Lopez from the city of Modesto, and there's a upcoming tax they're going to try to pass, and so I think he's going to talk a lot about that, and so it'll be interesting to hear from him. And then the following month, we'll be hearing from the new AMR ambulance regional director. So we have two 2 good solid months.
And I will add that this week, well, actually, I guess today's Wednesday. Tomorrow morning is our second quarterly Rise and Shine with the CEOs breakfast. And we will have Christine Schweiniger, Gretchen Arbini with Crown Painting, and Brent Garner joining us on our CEO panel. Our Women in Business Network is meeting next week, and they're also taking their first mini conference to Haven Women's Center on Friday. And so we're taking sponsorships for both those programs, Rising Professionals as well as Women in Business. And we're taking donations to fill tool bags of sorts, swag bags for the Havens event. So if you would like information on those, let me know. I'd be happy to provide that for you. And I think those are all the key big things at the forefront of my mind right now. So,
So can I take this opportunity to ask John a question?
John, Cecil would like to ask you a question. You ready?
Oh, no.
With upcoming elections, is the chamber's government relations going to get involved in any way, shape, or form?
Yeah, my understanding at this point, and we've been talking about it with the executive committee, is that we will send out the questionnaires to all the candidates like we normally do, and get their responses, and kind of something that you instituted, Cecil, we'll print one response in progress, and then we'll have all the responses without editorial changes, on the website. And so that's what we're going to do for sure. I don't think we're going to interview each candidate this cycle, and I don't know that the board is going to endorse anyone.
I would be a volunteer to do editorial content.
I'm sure you would.
Thank you.
Very good. Excellent. Okay, so with that, I think we are at the close of our time for today. We typically do have enough time marked out until 1 o'clock, but we'll give you the gift of time back today. We're just after 12:30 right now, and so we'll go ahead and wrap up our meeting. Do again want to thank everyone for being in attendance today. And if you have folks that you know of that need to be party to or participate in next week's or next month's presentation, please feel free to extend an invitation. This is an open meeting, and we love to see a strong showing of attendance. So with that, I will thank you again, and have a great rest of your afternoon. Thanks, everybody.